Chapter 4061. Stop trying to mystify us here. The young ladies beside Mu Qiulan heaved a sigh of relief as they pointed at the young lady and reprimanded her. Just a second ago, they were still enjoying everyone's fawning. The next second, they had become like a plague, an existence which they couldn't avoid. Mysterious Fairy had said that Yiqing Luo, that slut, was already dead. She was killed by the Overlord personally. The person in front of them was absolutely not Yiqing Luo. Someone must be trying to mystify us. Hearing the young lady's angry rebuke, Mu Qiulan also regained her senses from the shock. She froze her icy cold body as her hands clenched tightly. A pair of beautiful eyes stared at the young lady without blinking. She took a deep breath, trying her best to maintain the calmness in her voice as she said word by word, "Who are you? What's your motive for impersonating the Overlord? She is definitely not Yi, not Overlord. Even the Overlord can be impersonated, not to mention the Overlord. Someone must have found out about the news of the Overlord's death and intentionally came to impersonate the Overlord." The young ladies beside her immediately echoed in agreement. But the crowd didn't make a sound. Most of them hoped that what Mu Qiulan and the others said was true, if the person in front of them was impersonating the Overlord. Their earlier act of hugging her thigh could still be saved. But logic and intuition told them clearly. The red-robed young lady in front of them wasn't fake. Ha! A light laugh was heard from under the veil. The young lady's brows rose as her long and narrow eyes outlined a seductive arc unparalleled, peerless elegance. Every action, every smile, every frown, were endlessly enchanting. Her footsteps moved slightly, step by step, as she walked towards Mu Qiulan. The surrounding people swiftly moved aside, opening up a pathway. Seeing the young lady getting closer to her, Mu Qiulan's entire body turned stiff, totally unable to move. The muscles on her entire body were so taut as though they were about to explode. Her eyes were filled with a terrified expression. What are you trying to do? You dare to make a move on me, the Overlord will not let you off. Mu Qiulan's voice was trembling. Yiqing Luo's lips curled lightly. Just this bit of guts and you dare to fabricate nonsense, playing with people's hearts. What nonsense? Everything I've said is true. You imposter. What intentions do you have by pretending to be the Imperial Madam? Even now, Mu Qiulan still persisted in her dream. Yiqing Luo got closer to Mu Qiulan and shocked her so much that she staggered a few steps backwards. His body was stiff and taut due to nervousness. This large movement made her unable to stand steadily, and she fell to the ground. A few young ladies immediately screamed and helped her up. Yiqing Luo squinted at her contemptuously as her eyes were filled with ridicule, then. What does mysterious maiden think? Do I feel at ease? Mu Qiulan swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The fear and panic in her eyes were obvious. Whatever mysterious maiden has to say, just go ahead and say it, I'm listening. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly. Mu Qiulan's face was pale. Under the gaze of the pair of eyes that seemed to be able to see through one's heart, she suddenly let out a shrill scream. She hugged her head, squatted down on the ground, and began to wail loudly. Clearly, his psychological defense had been completely destroyed. Yiqing Luo gave a light scoff as she slowly pulled away from Mu Qiulan. Whereas at this moment, Tang Beiyuan, who was nestled in Langley Xian's arms, hung her head unmoving as she stared blankly at that red figure, as her eyes were filled with faint joy. Mistress, mistress. Chapter 4062. Yiqing Luo turned to Tang Beiyuan smilingly as she stretched out both her hands. Yuan, it's me. Tang Beiyuan's red lips pursed tightly as her eyes overflowed with joy. She immediately jogged over and pounced towards Yiqing Luo. But before she could get close to Yiqing Luo, her arm was grabbed by someone once again. Langley Xian grabbed her wrist as his grave and stern face was solemn. Yuan, she is the imperial madam, don't be unreasonable. Tang Beiyuan's footsteps halted as her face turned slightly pale as she glanced sideways at the hand he was grabbing. That smiling face froze on her face. Let go. Her lips pursed even tighter. Langley Xian frowned. You're angry. Tang Beiyuan suddenly laughed as she raised her head slightly and sneered at the man's solemn handsome face. Her smile was full of sarcasm. You have always paid attention to the occasion, but now you're holding me like this, I'm afraid it's not good. Yuan, Langley Xian's brows creased even tighter as his solemn expression added a heavy pressure for no reason. Tang Beiyuan swung her hand. Let go. Langley Xian took a look at Yiqing Luo and looked down at Tang Beiyuan. Don't mess around. After this matter is over, tell me whatever anger you have in your heart. I'm not angry. Tang Beiyuan's red lips curled slightly as her other hand held onto Langley Xian's hand as she tried to pry off his fingers. My relationship with the imperial madam doesn't need Hall Master Lang to worry about it. In order to maintain Hall Master Lang's upright and plain-spoken image, Hall Master Lang better not tug at me. Langley Xian's dark eyes flashed a trace of astonishment. Just as he was about to say something, a fair hand swayed slightly in front of his eyes. A fair, slender hand rested on Tang Beiyuan's wrist. Langley Xian raised his eyes and met with the young lady's bright eyes and white teeth. Hall Master Lang, you're hurting her. Yiqing Luo smiled as she spoke. In her smile, there was a trace of cold glint. Langley Xian's pupils contracted as he swiftly moved his palm away and lowered his eyes as he respectfully greeted, Imperial Madam. Just like what Beiyuan said, Hall Master Lang doesn't need to worry about my relationship with Beiyuan. Yiqing Luo smiled as she pulled Tang Beiyuan into her arms. The woman's slender body was somewhat cold. Yiqing Luo gently caressed the back of Tang Beiyuan's hand and then raised her eyes to look at Langley Xian. Hall Master Lang, you can't treat your lover like a subordinate, otherwise why would you need your lover to do? Saying that, she pulled Tang Beiyuan and walked to the other side. Perhaps Beiyuan's status made Langley Xian. Or it Langley Xian didn't dare to ignore her. Lang Luo's words. Yiqing Luo pulled Tang Beiyuan as they walked a few steps further away. She then raised her eyes and shot a glance at Langley Xian. You like him very much. Chapter 4063. Everyone was drenched in cold sweat. Their minds were in a blank state from fright. There was no way for them to calm down and think about how to make Yiqing Luo believe them. You're back, do you want to go over to the Treasure Exchange Hall to take a look? These few days, the boss of Treasure Exchange Hall is very worried about you. Tang Beiyuan looked at the surrounding people from various powerhouses who had a terrified look on their faces and opened her mouth to suggest. With these people around, there were many things which were not convenient for them to say. Speaking of Treasure Exchange, Yiqing Luo nodded slightly. Naturally I have to go over to take a look. Pei Xing that fellow, we agreed to head over to the Heaven Realm after the first Treasure Exchange auction but he still hasn't gone over till now. Old Master Huangfu probably thought that I'm not willing to let him go. That day, they also went over to West Cliff Mountain and brought Shadowless City's mysterious maiden back. Tang Beiyuan explained, Shadowless City's mysterious maiden kept saying that the internal area of West Cliff Mountain is extremely dangerous and going in would mean death, so they're all very worried about you. Tang Beiyuan smiled. These few days, Pei Xing and the others frequently came over to the Qiao residence to inquire about Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian's whereabouts. Adding on to the fact that Zhou Mo and Kitty Li were by the side chatting with them. Her relationship with Pei Xing and the others was considered not bad. When Yiqing Luo heard that, her expression changed slightly. Let's head over to the Treasure Exchange Hall now. They already knew that she had met with danger in West Cliff Mountain. And the situation was perilous. She had gone missing for another 3 days. adding on to the fact that the news of her death had spread like wildfire. Pei Xing and the others were definitely getting more and more worried. Yiqing Luo took a look at Mu Qiulan, who was hugging her head as she squatted on the ground, totally disregarding her. She raised her eyes and looked at Qiao family's patriarch. I'll have to trouble Qiao family's patriarch to put in some effort over here. I'll head over to the treasure exchange hall to report that I'm safe. After reminding her, she pulled Tang Beiyuan and was about to leave. Those people from various powerhouses who were crowding around immediately panicked. All of them immediately went up and carefully begged for mercy. Imperial Madam, it's us who have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai and listen to that slut's slanderous words. Earlier, what we said earlier wasn't our original intention. Imperial Madam. Imperial Madam is magnanimous, please don't be calculative with us. Right. Madam, it's all that bitch's fault. She used His Majesty to fool us. Chapter 4064. Immediately, someone directly knelt down with a plunk sound. I know I'm in the wrong. Imperial Madam, please forgive my rudeness. Our powerhouses in future will definitely follow the Overlord's lead. That was a young man who looked like he was in his 20s. His face was filled with fear. To tell the truth, Yiqing Luo wasn't too interested in these people. From the bottom of her heart, she had no intention to get involved with any powerhouses. They fawned on Mu Qiulan and belittled her actions, but she didn't mind at all. But apparently, these cultivators who were feeling guilty were afraid that Yiqing Luo would take revenge on them because of this. Yiqing Luo felt that it was rather funny. They were obviously a bunch of elites who lived in the upper class. But they were easily incited by others. Like these powerhouses, she couldn't even be bothered about them. Imperial Madam. I was also forced, you can't do this. I've already apologized, I've already knelt on the ground to beg you, why won't you forgive me? We were also forced to do this. Not of our own will. Everything is that slut's. That young man was kowtowing hard as he spoke. His entire face was filled with malevolence and distortion. Many powerhouses frowned when they heard this young man's words. They could tell that this was absolutely a small powerhouse which couldn't be shown in public. But no one stopped him. They allowed the young man to kneel on the ground and kowtow to beg for mercy. This was also everyone's way of using this young man to test Yiqing Luo's attitude. Yiqing Luo didn't express any attitude, but Tang Beiyuan, who was standing by the side, laughed out angrily. Forced? Who forced you? Who put a knife on your neck, forcing you to hug Mu Qiulan's thigh? Forced to do this? Stop joking, all right? Why are you the ones who were forced to do this? Then, where are those people? Why don't I see those powerhouses like you, flattering Mu Qiulan? As Tang Beiyuan said that, she pointed to those powerhouses who were standing beside Patriarch Qiao, who had not expressed any opinion from the start. Although these powerhouses stood on Yiqing Luo's side when Mu Qiulan was spouting nonsense, but they didn't stick to Mu Qiulan. Those people who were begging for mercy were reprimanded till their ears turned red as they lowered their heads in shame. Tang Beiyuan continued, don't say things like apologizing means I will definitely forgive you. I'll kill you and then apologize to you, do you accept? I. The young man was speechless from Tang Beiyuan's barrage of words. What? Don't you think I have to forgive you just because I apologize? Tang Beiyuan sneered. The young man blushed and did not answer. Yiqing Luo grabbed Tang Beiyuan's arm and said calmly, forget it, there's no need to waste time on him. Let's go gather the treasures. Tang Beiyuan glanced coldly at the young man and didn't say a word as she walked forward with Yiqing Luo. Tang Beiyuan retorted. The people from the surrounding forces couldn't help but make way for them. No one dared to speak again. The young man who was kneeling on the ground slowly raised his head. looking at the two silhouettes that were leaving. Tang Beiyuan's sarcastic words rang in his ears. The young man's twisted and hideous face became even more terrifying. His eyes were filled with crazed killing intent. Chapter 4065. The young man's sudden action and that maniacal rage. All of them were caught unprepared. No one had expected that someone dared to make a move. For a moment, no one could react in time. The young man had already closed in on Yiqing Luo. His entire body exploded with a strong, profound glow. Was he going to self-destruct? Everyone realized the young man's intention as their expressions turned horrified. Subconsciously, they dodged to the sides. Upon sensing the young man's violent, profound glow, Tang Beiyuan had already rushed in front of Yiqing Luo in an attempt to help her block the young man's attack. Yuan. At the instant when Tang Beiyuan made her move, Lang Li Xian's footsteps moved as he stretched out his hand to hold on to Tang Beiyuan's body. At the same time, the young man's crazy killing intent was right in front of her eyes. Yiqing Luo. What situation was this? Were they all rushing to their deaths? It was just a young man. Was there a need to be afraid that she couldn't evade? The two of them were blocking in front of her. It limited her damage output, all right. Just at the instant when the young man pounced over, a loud bang was heard as a heavy object landed on the ground. All of a sudden, an arc flashed before everyone's eyes, and something was sent flying backward. That heavy object fell heavily onto the ground with a miserable shriek. Dust filled the air as it slowly revealed the young man who was lying on the ground with a face filled with pain. And what attracted everyone's attention was a tall figure stood in front of the young man. His purple robe billowed, and as his sleeves fluttered, the air waves surged violently, emitting a majestic and powerful aura. Overlord, Overlord. Everyone's legs turned into jelly as they looked at the man high above, as their hearts suddenly tightened. Overlord. The young man who was lying on the ground raised his head with a face filled with fear, trying to see the person's face clearly. But just at the instant when he raised his head, his chest felt as though it was on fire. A large mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth. Following that, something seemed to be surging within his body. A loud bang was heard. His body suddenly exploded. Blood splattered and flesh splattered. Everyone held their breaths in shock by this scene. As for the man standing by the side, his peerlessly handsome face was icy cold, without any change in his emotions. No matter how the flesh and blood splattered in all directions. She had never touched a man. Ah, Xian. Then, a clear and sweet voice rang out. The man, who seemed to be covered in frost, melted like ice and snow. His entire person became gentle. He turned around to look at the girl. The cold lines on the man's face softened. It was just a simple emotional change. Everyone could feel it. How much did the Overlord care about Yiqing Luo? Chapter 4066. Yiqing Luo was just teasing, but it made everyone's hearts lift up. Those powerhouses who originally hugged Mu Qiulan's thighs were even more terrified. They were afraid that Yiqing Luo would expose them in the next second. But after Yiqing Luo said that, she only leaned into Dmo Xian's arms and didn't say another word. Dmo Xian followed Yiqing Luo's gaze as he calmly shot a glance at Mu Qiulan. There wasn't a single bit of warmth in his deep eyes. His thin lips moved slightly as his calm voice rang. Keeping her alive is because you want her alive. If you don't like her, just kill her. Dmo Xian's voice wasn't loud. But he was the man who attracted the most attention. Even though his voice wasn't loud, everyone held their breaths in concentration as they listened attentively. They wanted to find out Dmo Xian's attitude. After hearing this sentence, Those powerhouses cultivators who believed Mu Qiulan's words earlier all turned pale. Overlord. Suddenly, Mu Qiulan, who was hugging her head squatting on the ground, suddenly raised her head and looked at Dmo Xian as her voice trembled. How could you? How could you be so heartless? Didn't like her, just kill her. In the Overlord's heart, what was she? Mu Qiulan looked at Dmo Xian in a daze as her eyes were filled with resentment and infatuation. Actually, towards Dmo Xian, other than his distinguished identity which attracted her. She truly liked him as a person. Why could he be so gentle towards Yiqing Luo? But he couldn't give her this love. If that Overlord who was gentle to her and wanted to pledge his love to her was real, how good would that be? Mu Qiulan's thoughts were written clearly on her face. Especially that blatant look in his eyes. Staring straight at Dmo Xian. Dmo Xian's expression sunk. Yiqing Luo's figure moved slightly as she blocked in front of Dmo Xian. And blocked Mu Qiulan's vision. Her lips curled into a smile as her expression was calm as she met Mu Qiulan's vengeful gaze and spoke calmly, heartless. From the start, you're hugging an imposter, just your wishful thinking. You and Ah Xian don't seem to have any feelings, so how can you say that you're heartless? It's all your fault, it's all your fault. Mu Qiulan screamed hysterically, if it wasn't for you, how could I have been fooled by an imposter? It's you, it's you. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. He ignored Mu Qiulan. Mu Qiulan's mental defenses had obviously collapsed completely. Even her consciousness was in a mess. He was on the verge of going crazy. Now, he had already dug out what she wanted everyone to hear from her mouth. There was no longer any meaning for Mu Qiulan to exist. She spared Mu Qiulan's life. But it was because of Dmo Xian's reputation. Now, Mu Qiulan had personally admitted that the Lord Overlord, who was with her, was an imposter. That was enough. Ah Xian, let's go. Yiqing Luo held Dmo Xian's hand as she turned around and walked out of the courtyard. Naturally, no one dared to stop them and made way for them. As for Mu Qiulan, Yiqing Luo didn't need to specially remind her. There would also be someone to deal with Mu Qiulan. After all, Mu Qiulan's actions today had caused many forces to make the wrong choice. To show his loyalty. How could they possibly let Mu Qiulan off so easily? Whereas on the other side, Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian's figures were about to disappear around the corner. Tang Beiyuan, who had been nestled in Langli Xian's arms, finally reacted as she immediately pushed Langli Xian, trying to chase up to Yiqing Luo's footsteps. Chapter 4067. The man's palm was scorching hot. Tang Beiyuan looked sideways at him. Langli Xian's face was cold and stern. He said in a deep voice, "Since the Overlord has come, there is no need to follow." Tang Beiyuan pursed her lips and looked up at Langli Xian. "Oh, then can you let go?" Listening to the woman's cold voice, Langli Xian frowned in discomfort. "Yuan, He called out Tang Beiyuan's name, but he didn't know what to say. There was a moment of silence. Tang Beiyuan didn't wait for the man to continue. She moved her hand and broke free from the man's restraint. "If there's nothing else, please move aside." "Why are you angry?" Langli Xian didn't let go. He pulled her in front of him, and their eyes met. "What have I done wrong? You should tell me." "Ha!" Tang Beiyuan's smile was a little cold and her eyes were a little sore. "You didn't do anything wrong. It's all my fault, so please let go of me. Stop messing around, okay?" Langli Xian somewhat helplessly pressed his eyebrows. "It's not easy for us to go on a mission together." "Good, okay." Tears welled up in Tang Beiyuan's eyes. Her eyelashes were slightly wet. He also knew. Wasn't it rare for them to be on a mission together? He also knew that they could only be together for a long time when they were on a mission together. He actually knew everything. Tang Beiyuan closed her eyes and said weakly, "I don't want to mess around. I'm really tired. Let go of me. I want to go back to my room and rest." "All right." Langley Xian didn't hesitate and responded in a calm voice. As he spoke, he loosened his grip. The moment the scorching hot hand left his wrist, Tang Beiyuan's heart felt as if it had been pierced by a needle. The pain was unbearable. She clenched her fists and suppressed the surging emotions in her heart. He was about to turn around and leave. The next moment, her body felt light. She had already fallen into a broad embrace. She was startled and her body stiffened. Above her head, the man's deep and solemn voice floated down. "If you're tired, lie in my arms and rest for a while. I'll send you back to your room." Langley Xian carried her and walked step by step towards Tang Beiyuan's room. His steps were steady. Tang Beiyuan didn't feel uncomfortable at all when she was nestled in his arms. Her eyelashes fluttered. He looked up at Langley Xian's chin. He stared for a long time. Finally, she closed her eyes and buried her head in his chest. Treasures Exchange Hall. Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian had just arrived. He saw Pei Xing and the others rushing out of the treasure-gathering hole. Lao Lai was still shouting from behind, "Close the door of the treasure-gathering hall first." However, no one paid attention to old Lai. The group of people rushed forward impatiently with anxious expressions. Even when it swept past Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian, they didn't notice it at all. Instead it was the expressionless Gue Wu who was following behind Pei Xing. His eyes moved slightly as his gaze swept past Yiqing Luo and stopped in his tracks. "Sister." Kitty Lee caught a whiff of Yiqing Luo's scent, and on seeing the young lady standing not too far away, she was looking at her with a light smile. His entire body almost flew over and rushed into Yiqing Luo's arms. The kitten's eyes were wet with tears. Her hands hugged Yiqing Luo tightly as her voice trembled. "Sister, you're finally back. You're finally back. I thought, you really didn't want me anymore." Chapter 4068. Because of Kitty Lee's cry, the two people who were still rushing ahead stopped in their tracks. Pei Xing turned back and saw the young lady who was tightly hugged by Kitty Lee. A look of joy appeared in his eyes. He rushed over and stood in front of Yiqing Luo, looking her up and down with excitement. "Ah, Luo, you're all right, you're back." Yiqing Luo smiled and nodded. "Yes, I'm fine, I'm back." Where have you been these few days? Why couldn't Kitty Lee sense your presence?" Pei Xing was so excited that he wanted to hug Yiqing Luo. But a cold gaze swept past him. His movements suddenly froze. That action of wanting to hug or not, froze on the spot. Very funny. Everyone couldn't help but burst out laughing. Yiqing Luo took the initiative to lean over and gave him a gentle hug. The action was very fast and not considered close. But when Yiqing Luo had just pulled away from Pei Xing, with one hand, he scooped her up and pressed her into his embrace. A somewhat cold gaze fell on her. Yiqing Luo smiled, circled his neck and directly kissed his face. "Be good." After a perfunctory stroke, Yiqing Luo looked at Pei Xing. "I met with some accidents in the Western Cliff Mountain. Xian accompanied me to recuperate these few days. Today I've recovered, so I came over to look for you." "Accidents? Then have you recovered?" Gu Zixi looked at Yiqing Luo worriedly. "I can take a look for you." "I'm fine, really fine, don't worry. Xian is taking care of me, don't worry." Yiqing Luo shook her head. Gue Wu, who had been silent, stared at Yiqing Luo. A trace of admiration flashed past his dark eyes. "This time the accident in the Western Cliff Mountain, on the contrary, made you advance to the next level." Yi Qing Luo was slightly stunned, her heart was slightly surprised. She didn't expect Gue Wu to be able to see the change in her aura. Gue Wu's strength, how strong was he exactly? Advance to the next level. Ah, Luo advanced again. What accident did you meet in the Western Cliff Mountain? Pei Xing asked in surprise. It's very dangerous over there. If it weren't for Ah Xian, I might have died there, let alone leveling up. So, don't even think about taking the risk. Yi Qing Luo's warning destroyed Pei Xing's thoughts as she changed the topic with a smile. How long has it been? Why haven't you gone to the heaven realm? Later, old Master Huangfu will say that I'm not willing to let him go again. Pei Xing scratched his head. I'm just worried about you. So many things have happened, how can I go to the heaven realm with peace of mind? Now that I'm fine, you guys should get ready. Yi Qing Luo walked towards the direction of the treasure-gathering exchange as she said, go to your maternal grandfather in peace, don't worry about me. Pei Xing glanced at Gu Zixi. The excitement and joy on her face were gone. He lowered his head, and a dark golden flowing light faintly appeared. Chapter 4069. He was now able to protect the treasure's exchange hall and live such a comfortable life. Everything was because of Yi Qing Luo. If anything happened to Yi Qing Luo, he would never be able to forgive himself. He had yet to repay Yi Qing Luo's kindness, so how could he leave the earth realm in peace and head towards the heaven realm to search for his own future, even if Pei Xing had grown up? However, the sentimentality in his bones could not be corrected in a short period of time. Yi Qing Luo could tell what Pei Xing was thinking about with just one look. After Earth Realm's matters are settled, I will head over to Heaven Realm. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled as she laughed lightly, so you and Zixi go over there and wait for me first. Pei Xing's expression froze. He wanted to say something else. But Yi Qing Luo was the first to speak, you guys go over first and make good use of this opportunity. After you've stabilized your footing in the Huangfu family, when I go to the Heaven Realm, you can take care of me. Isn't that right? Yi Qing Luo's words successfully blocked Pei Xing's words. Alright, since Ah Luo has said so, don't think too much about it. Gu Zixi held on to Pei Xing's arm and said gently, if we really want to thank Ah Luo, we can wait for Ah Luo in the heaven realm. When Ah Luo reaches the heaven realm, we can become her backing. Yes, that's what I mean. Yi Qing Luo snapped her fingers, whether I can do whatever I want in the heaven realm in the future depends on you. The minute Yi Qing Luo's words came out, it made the surrounding few people couldn't help but burst out laughing. At the same time, in the Qiao mansion, Qiao family had dismissed all the people from those forces. Even the few young ladies who followed Mu Qiulan were forcefully called as guards by Patriarch Qiao and thrown out of the Qiao mansion. After that, he ordered the servants to carry Mu Qiulan back to her room. Mu Qiulan's emotions were very abnormal. He kept hugging his head, screaming and struggling. After all, she was the Empyrean fairy of Shadowless City. When she went berserk, the servants of Qiao Manor were unable to get close to Mu Qiulan at all. Instead, they were severely wounded. In the end, it was Langley Xian who came forward and directly struck Mu Qiulan with his palm. This palm strike did not knock Mu Qiulan out, but she had lost her strength and collapsed to the ground. Langley Xian's stern face revealed a trace of astonishment. He was surprised that his palm strike had failed to knock Mu Qiulan unconscious. However, he did not think too much about it. He lifted Mu Qiulan up as if she was a piece of trash and threw her into her room. A hard lock locked the door tightly. Langley Xian raised his hand. His palm was enveloped in a layer of dark force. That layer of profound energy followed Langley Xian's hand, and slowly fell onto the lock. It formed a protective shield. Hall Master Lang, go and take care of Hall Master Tang first. I will have people look after this place. Qiao family head cupped his hands towards Langley Xian. Langley Xian was about to refuse. But, just as the words were about to come out of his mouth, in his mind, Tang Beiyuan's face, which was clearly smiling but was filled with endless sorrow, appeared. There was a dull pain in her heart. He slowly clenched his fist. He looked at the tightly shut door, then looked at the lock that was shrouded in profound energy. Unless someone with a higher rank than him appeared, only then could he open this door. Finally, he nodded and replied, "Then I'll have to trouble Patriarch Qiao." This was Langley Xian's first time, putting Dmo Xian's instructions second. His heart was filled with thoughts of Tang Beiyuan's face, and that smile at the corner of her mouth, that pierced his heart. But he did not know. Not long after he left for Tang Beiyuan's courtyard, a wisp of black smoke slowly floated into the tightly shut door. Chapter 4070. In the room, Mu Qiulan laid on the bed. Her entire body was in pain, making her body kept on trembling lightly. Her forehead was oozing with cold sweat. Because of the intense pain, her malevolent expression was distorted to the extreme. Her breathing was very heavy. That palm of Langley Xian just now could practically take her life. Her entire body was in so much pain that she wanted to faint directly. But she was very clear in her heart. She had no way to faint. Because, in the West Cliff Mountain, that medicinal pill which Yi Qing Luo threw to her made her consciousness maintain a clear mind forever. Even if she slept, she would not be able to sleep peacefully. She believed. Even if she died now, perhaps they would clearly feel how they were dying bit by bit. Mu Qiulan's heart was filled with hatred. Suddenly, the entire room sunk into a kind of December day atmosphere. The bone-chilling cold made her entire body shiver. "You trash!" An icy cold voice rang beside her ear. That voice was very pleasant to listen to, but it was wrapped in a deep chill. Hearing it made one shiver even though it wasn't cold. The moment that voice rang, Mu Qiulan, who was originally lying on the bed, almost unable to move, suddenly sat up straight, as her face was filled with terror as she looked in front. It was a sudden movement. Made her body emitted an intense tearing pain, as though someone had dismantled it, and then reassembled it back together. She was in so much pain that she was drenched in cold sweat, as she panted heavily, but her gaze had always been looking in front. You. In the air, a wisp of black smoke faintly appeared. The smoke curled up, as it revolved and floated. Gradually, a slender figure appeared indistinctly in the black smoke. The black smoke was thick, and that person's face could not be seen clearly. She could only faintly see, under the black smoke, that person's eyes were like a venomous snake. Mu Qiulan's face was filled with terror, as her hands clutched tightly onto the blanket beneath her. In the black smoke, the figure's lips curled into a cold smile, as his voice was extremely sinister, helping you with all the details, arranging everything properly, and actually managing things to such a state. "Tell me, are you a trash?" That person's tone was full of mockery and disdain. However, Mu Qiulan didn't dare to reveal the slightest bit of displeasure. She didn't have her usual lofty and unconvinced demeanor. She shrunk her neck and trembled uncontrollably. I am sorry. I didn't want it to be like this. I didn't want to, in order for you to drive a wedge between God Monarch and that SL*T, he gave you the jade pendant. Now that the jade pendant is gone, their relationship has become even better. That person chuckled as he spoke of the things that Mu Qiulan had failed to accomplish. His tone was calm, and it did not seem like he was questioning or blaming her at all. But this was the case. The more Mu Qiulan sensed the approaching danger. I. He wanted to explain, but his tongue was curled up in fright. His teeth were chattering, and he couldn't utter a single word. Idiot. You can't even recognize the real venerable sovereign, and you still treat an impostor as your true love. You're really stupid. Mentioning this, the man's tone was obviously a little more angry. She suddenly flicked her sleeve. The ball of black smoke swiftly attacked Mu Qiulan's direction. The smoke instantly wrapped around Mu Qiulan's neck. It lifted her up into the air. Mu Qiulan widened her eyes, begging for mercy in fright and unwillingness. That person sneered. As he laughed, the black smoke became thicker and thicker. Chapter 4071. Hearing that he still had value. Mu Qiulan's eyes immediately shone with hope. As long as you let me go, I'm willing to do anything for you, as long as she was still useful. He wouldn't have killed her. She could still live. As long as she was alive, she would have a chance to make a comeback. Mu Qiulan was filled with hope. However, in front of him, shrouded in the black fog, he could vaguely see the corner of that person's lips curled up and that pair of sinister and mocking eyes. She realized something. But he didn't dare to think too deeply about it. In the next instant, that person had already approached with a sinister grin. It was accompanied by a gust of chilly air. You're a mysterious fairy after all. I believe that your death and Xiao Yulu's death will be enough for the palace of Linglong to step in. So, go to hell, the man smiled sinisterly. The dark mist shrouding Mu Qiulan tightened bit by bit. Mu Qiulan widened her eyes in terror, shaking her head desperately. But how could she have the strength to resist? How could he resist? His pupils dilated and his breathing stopped. Mu Qiulan could vaguely see a face slowly revealing itself amidst the thick fog. It was a face that was exquisitely beautiful and extremely young. However, when that face grinned at her, his facial features were stiff and unnatural. Treasures exchange whole. Under Yiqing Luo's persuasion, Peixing dismissed the idea of staying in the earth domain. Immediately, Yiqing Luo urged them to make a move. Peixing was confused. Do you need to be in such a hurry? How can I not be anxious? When old man Huangfu left, he instructed you to immediately head to the heaven realm after the first auction. How long has it been? Yiqing Luo replied in a serious manner. In fact, he was worried that something would happen again and drag Peixing down again. After all, if he stayed here for too long, he would definitely die. Old Master Huangfu couldn't help but overthink things. On top of that, old man Huangfu was returning to the Huangfu clan ahead of time. Because of Huangfu Fengyan. Old Master Huangfu was filled with guilt towards Peixing. He would definitely arrange everything for Peixing in the heaven realm. If this dragged on any longer, it would only disrupt old Master Huangfu's plans. Before old man Huangfu left, he gave Peixing a jade pendant. That jade pendant wasn't just a token of the Huangfu clan. It was also to open the passage to the heaven realm for Peixing and Gu Zixi. Of course, this was his only chance. Clutching the jade pendant in his hand, Peixing looked at Yiqing Luo without blinking as he spoke seriously. I will definitely stand firm in the heaven realm. Zixi and I will wait for you in the heavenly realm. Yiqing Luo nodded. I believe you can do it. I hope by then, I can see your growth. He gave a few more instructions. Yiqing Luo sent Peixing and Gu Zixi to the heaven realm's passageway. The two figures disappeared along with the passage. Yiqing Luo then retracted her gaze. She stretched her waist lazily and leaned into Dmo Xian's arms. Another two people are missing. We need to hurry, we also need to head to the heaven realm. As she spoke, she threw a bunch of keys in her hand to Lao Lai. Old Lai subconsciously caught the key and looked at Yiqing Luo in puzzlement. Ah, Sheng and Zixi have left, I'll leave the treasure gathering to you. Yiqing Luo said it lightly. Old Lai immediately threw the keys in his hand to Gue Wu. I don't know anything and I'm going back to the Hell Palace. What's the use of this treasure-gathering trading hall? He was a man from the Hell Palace. Chapter 4072. Are you silly? Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at him. If I were to hand over all the treasures to you, I wouldn't be at ease. Gue Wu glanced at the key that was thrown at him, and dodged to the side. The key was about to fall to the ground. Lao Lai had no choice but to catch the key and hold it in his hand. Then what do you mean? With Treasure Gathering's current reputation, it's not worth it to close the shop. Yiqing Luo said, moreover, the treasure gathering is Ah Xing's blood and sweat, and is also Ah Xing's obsession. To close it just like that. Although Ah Xing won't say anything, but in his heart, he will definitely feel upset. She paused for a moment, and then continued, that's why I'm saying, this gathering of treasures, for the sake of camaraderie and profit, can continue to operate. You definitely won't stay in the land for long. Who will care about the treasures that you leave behind? Lao Lai asked. Yiqing Luo replied, isn't there still Chow family? Chow family. Let the Chow family manage it. Wasn't this the same as giving the treasure exchange hall to the Chow family? The key will belong to your underworld palace while the treasure gathering trading house will be managed by the Chow family. Every month the underworld palace will split the profits, isn't that enough? Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she looked at old Lai. Lao Lai's eyes widened. In other words, the Hell Palace and the Chow family will work together. Under the situation of mutual restriction. Indeed, neither side dared to have any evil thoughts. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as she smiled at old Lai, don't tell me. Hell Palace doesn't want to earn some extra crystals? Old Lai, all right, he thought. Although the underworld palace did not lack crystal stones. If they didn't have any spar, they could still go outside to fight for them. However, this share was the crystals that he had earned himself. What if he couldn't get it outside? He could still snatch his spar. Then it's decided happily. I'll discuss with Patriarch Chow later. Yiqing Luo clapped her hands as she made the final decision. Lao Lai had no objection at all. He happily put away the key. Gue Wu shot a glance at Yiqing Luo. When do you plan to go to the heavenly realm? In the near future. Yiqing Luo thought for a moment. Mu Qiulan's matter has come to an end and the impostor's matter has also been settled. Let's wait for the balance historian's side to completely confirm that the Earth domain will not suffer any sudden attacks from the Palace of Seclusion during this period of time. A completely different calmness and vicissitudes of life appeared on Gue Wu's cold and handsome face. He seemed to smile. It was a very shallow curve. You really treat the matters of the Earth domain as your own business. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders as she spread out her hands. No choice, who asked me and Palace of Darkness to be mortal enemies. Palace of Darkness can't wait to kill me and I can't wait to kill them. This matter concerns Palace of Darkness, so of course I have to treat it seriously. Let's not talk about these things. Zhou Mo's long and narrow almond-shaped eyes lifted, and he leaned over with a smile. The matter of the impostor has been resolved. What I'm more curious about is, who exactly is that impostor? As he spoke, he stroked his chin. To be able to imitate the venerable emperor so vividly. TSK, if it wasn't someone familiar, how could he imitate it? Yiqing Luo took a look at Dmo Xian before shifting her vision onto Zhou Mo, who was smiling cheekily. I'm more curious than you to know who that impostor is. What? Didn't they say that the problem with the impostor was solved? You still don't know who that person is? Zhou Mo had an expression of disbelief. Yiqing Luo spread out her hands. He was the one who settled it and refused to tell me who the person who impersonated him was. Chapter 4073. Zhou Mo had just finished his words. Gue Wu, Old Lai, and the rest tacitly distanced themselves from him. Even Kitty Lee shook her little ears and wagged her tail as she shrank behind Yi Ching Luo. Zhou Mo looked around and saw that the few of them had distanced themselves from him. He helplessly spread out his hands. What I asked, isn't it what you want to know? Moreover, what I said was not the truth. The few of them stood a few steps further away. They shook their heads in unison. This was absolutely not what they wanted to know. Don't push the blame to them. Sigh, you guys are too. Before he could finish his words, a cold gaze fell onto Zhou Mo. Mo Xian's face was solemn and cold as he looked at Zhou Mo calmly. His gaze was like ice, very breathtaking. No matter how Zhou Mo ignored it. That gaze followed him like a shadow. Several breaths later, Zhou Mo raised his hand, indicating his surrender. Fine, I won't ask any more, all right? Mo Xian's cold gaze swept past him and retracted it. TSK. This makes me feel that there's something fishy going on. This sound was extremely soft. It was him who was mumbling. He hadn't finished mumbling. Zhou Mo suddenly let out a miserable "aw." His entire body flew out and crashed onto the ground. His limbs were facing the sky as he fell into a state of confusion. His mouth kept on howling, ouch ouch. That tall man who stood beside the young lady slowly smoothed his sleeves. Purple clouds billowed as invisible profound waves surged. Damn. I can't even complain, do you need to be so cruel? I'm in so much pain. Zhou Mo supported his waist as he stood up. No matter how he howled. The few people who were watching from the side all hid far away and did not pay attention to him at all. Zhou Mo pressed his chest with a pained look, you bunch of heartless people. Succumbing to the tyranny of the overlord. And little wild cat, I'm already injured to this extent and you don't even feel sorry for me. Kitty Lee popped out her little head from behind Yi Ching Luo. You're courting death, Kitty won't accompany you. Kitty will stand with sister on brother-in-law's side. Zhou Mo. *CK, he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. What should he do? Mo Xian shot a glance at that handsome fox-like face which was now twisted into a ball as he sneered, don't say anything that will affect the relationship between this lord and Lil Luo, or in front of Lil Luo, or... I was just *king kidding. Zhou Mo gritted his teeth. Even jokes won't do. Mo Xian raised his eyes slightly, his vision fixed on him. His gaze swept over. Zhou Mo was instantly terrified. He shrank his neck and didn't say anything else. This farce had actually eased the atmosphere among the crowd quite a bit. Yi Ching Luo smiled as she looked at Zhou Mo, who was still holding onto her waist and pressing onto her chest while stretching out his hand towards Kitty Lee, howling as a sliver of helplessness flashed past her eyes. It could be seen that Mo Xian did not go all out. Zhou Mo didn't suffer any substantial injuries. It was just purposely howling there to attract the attention and concern of a certain cat. She didn't expose him. Instead, she raised her eyebrows and looked at the solemn man beside her. To be honest, she was also very curious. Who was the person who impersonated Mo Xian? To tell the truth, that impersonator impersonated Mo Xian. Some of his actions, mannerisms and tone were extremely similar. If it wasn't for the fact that she understood Mo Xian too well. Between her and Mo Xian, there was a kind of unknown connection. Chapter 4074. But Mo Xian didn't seem to want her to know who the other party was. Yi Ching Luo raised her eyebrows. Could it be that Zhou Mo's big mouth was right? What kind of unspeakable relationship did the impostor have with him? This thought had just surfaced in his mind. Her body was suddenly pulled by someone and she fell into the man's broad embrace. Her chin was clasped by the man's slender fingers. She lifted it up forcefully and locked eyes with him. His eyes, as deep as ink, seemed to gather in the vast rain. With a single glance, Yiqing Luo's heart seemed to be bewitched for a moment as she felt dizzy for a moment. This was a man's face. She really couldn't get tired of it, for the rest of her life. Every time he suddenly flirted with her like this, all of them were able to stir up her maiden heart. You don't believe me? Dmo Xian narrowed his peach blossom eyes, reflecting a dangerous message. He just swept a glance at Yiqing Luo's expression and he could tell what she was thinking about. Yiqing Luo blinked her long eyelashes. No. Do you want to know who the impostor is? His thin lips curled up. His smile was devilishly charming. It made Yiqing Luo's heart skip a few beats uncontrollably. Her lips felt dry. She coughed and shook her head. No. Dmo Xian slowly loosened his grip on her, but he didn't let go completely. His thin lips curled up and he smiled devilishly. Since you don't want to, then I won't say it. Yiqing Luo, he had fallen for the honey trap again. At the end of the day, he still didn't want to ask about the impostor. He didn't want her to know. She could investigate it herself. Yiqing Luo's idea soon got the chance to execute. That was after treasure gathering and everyone had lunch. Yiqing Luo stayed in the treasure gathering to tidy up some of the more precious items, in case when Hell Palace and Chao Palace worked together to manage the treasure gathering, there might be some disputes due to benefits. Seeing that Gue Wu, Old Lai, and the others were gathering treasures, Dmo Xian then left to settle some matters. Before he left, he specially tugged Yiqing Luo as he instructed seriously, I'll come pick you up 4 hours later. Stay in the treasure gathering obediently and don't go anywhere else, do you understand? His tone made it seem like he was treating her as a troublemaker. Was she a troublemaker? It was clearly trouble that came to find her, all right. She had always been obedient and never took the initiative to look for trouble, okay? Grievance. Yiqing Luo put on a sour face as she sent Dmo Xian off and went back into the treasure house. Just before Dmo Xian left for half an incense stick of time, Yiqing Luo was rummaging through the treasure's warehouse. Suddenly, he heard a few soft noises coming from the darkness. She was the only one in the warehouse. Gue Wu and the others were all in the hall calculating the accounts. How could there be other people in this warehouse? Yiqing Luo's expression congealed and her gaze turned sharp as she quietly approached the direction where the sound came from. Just as he approached, a purple streak of light flashed before his eyes. When he raised his head again, he could only vaguely see a slender figure disappearing before his eyes. Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk as she looked around. He saw that nothing in the warehouse had been touched. She frowned and looked in the direction where the voice disappeared. He quickly caught up with her. That figure was obviously trying to seduce her. When she chased after him, the figure flashed again and disappeared before her eyes. Yiqing Luo's brows creased even tighter. Was this another trick from the secluded palace? Wasn't it over after making use of the King of Darkness the last time? Now, they came up with a new trick again. Chapter 4075. She stopped in her tracks, narrowed her eyes, and scanned the surroundings, alertly releasing her perception. Suddenly, her gaze paused. His line of sight was fixed on the purple figure standing under a huge banyan tree not too far away. His luxurious purple robe fluttered in the strong wind like rolling clouds. Especially, his face was peerless and extremely handsome. Just a glance was enough to make one sink into it. But after Yiqing Luo swept a glance, the expression on his face revealed a mocking smile that wasn't a smile. Her half-squinted eyes reflected a piercingly cold light. She retracted her vigilance, crossed her arms over her chest, and looked at that person with ridicule. That person slowly raised his head and met her gaze. Their eyes met. His peach blossom eyes that were as deep as an abyss seemed to be filled with a pool of spring water. His red lips curled upwards. With a hint of demonic charm. He stood on the branch and reached out a hand to her. His voice was deep and gorgeous, extremely sexy. Little Luo, come here. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. The frivolous smile at the corner of his mouth became even wider. She raised her eyebrows and smiled at him. The two of them stared at each other for a long time. The man retracted his hand and smiled helplessly. As expected, I still can't fool you. Yiqing Luo scoffed lightly. The man's sleeves fluttered as he flew down from the tree and landed in front of Yiqing Luo. That face, which was exactly the same as Dmo Xian's, was reflected in Yiqing Luo's pupils from a close distance. Do you like to pretend to be Xian so much? Yiqing Luo smiled faintly. The man lowered his eyes and looked deeply at the young girl in front of him. His eyes were filled with warmth. The look in his eyes made her very uncomfortable. Such a gaze. She really has guts. Dmo Xian looked at her. Just as Yiqing Luo's smile froze and was about to open her mouth to stop this kind of gaze. She heard the man's low and hoarse voice sound out, if I can obtain your feelings, I really want to pretend to be him and continue pretending to be him. This kind of confession made Yiqing Luo stunned. What the hell was this? Was this man pretending to be Dmo Xian confessing to her? What kind of godly development was this? Yiqing Luo was stunned. The man looked at her stunned expression and couldn't help chuckling. He really didn't tell you my identity. That heat was definitely referring to Dmo Xian. Who are you? Yiqing Luo took a step back. The man's low and deep laughter was very magnetic. That voice was exactly the same as Dmo Xian's. However, the feeling was completely different. The man did not imitate Dmo Xian's expression and posture. He slowly stretched out his hand towards Yiqing Luo. His broad slender palm was just about to land on Yiqing Luo's cheek. But Yiqing Luo turned her head away, avoiding his hand. The man only smiled, his eyes full of gentleness. He doesn't want you to know my identity, so he must have his own plans. Yiqing Luo knitted her brows tightly as she felt that smile was inexplicably familiar. Did we know each other? The man was silent for a moment, then raised a gentle smile. His dark pupils, when he looked at Yiqing Luo, seemed to be condensed with starlight. I'm already very happy that you can ask in this way. The man smiled lightly, that pair of shimmering peach blossom eyes, curved into an arc bearing this face which was exactly the same as Dmo Xian. But made a completely different expression from Dmo Xian. This made Yiqing Luo feel very awkward. Although, when Dmo Xian faced her, he was also extremely gentle. Chapter 4076. However, the gentleness of the man in front of her came from his very bones. Such gentleness, such a smile. It was very familiar. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased tightly into a bundle. He glared at the man. The man stared at her until he couldn't help but chuckle, his chest heaving up and down. You want to know my identity so badly? Yiqing Luo's gaze was sharp as she replied simply, yes. Is it because you're curious about me, or because you're curious about my familiarity? The man asked with a smile. Yiqing Luo shook her head, neither. The man, Then, why do you want to know who I am? Yiqing Luo replied, I'm just curious, how did you manage to impersonate Xian, you and Xian? What relationship do you have? The man's smile froze on his face. He had to admit it. Yiqing Luo's sentence was really pricking his heart. He thought that Yiqing Luo was curious about him, so she wanted to know his identity, which was why she followed him here. But, who would have thought, Yiqing Luo was merely because of Dmo Xian. Because he was able to impersonate Dmo Xian and had an incomparable understanding of Dmo Xian, that was why she wanted to know his identity. The smile on the man's face gradually revealed some bitterness. He hung his head. Her long black hair cascaded down her back. It concealed the gloom in his eyes. After a long time, the man's slightly hoarse voice came from the hair. You just need to remember that I like you. I won't hurt you. That's enough. After the man said this, his entire aura was a little weak. He clenched his hands into fists. He seemed nervous. His breathing was also slightly erratic. Furthermore, he swiftly raised his eyes and took a look at Yiqing Luo's expression before swiftly lowering his head. He looked like an innocent young man who had met someone he liked for the first time and felt shy after confessing. However, after all these actions, Yiqing Luo only felt that it was funny. The corners of her lips curled up into a mocking smile. You like me? Won't hurt me. Should I help you recall? 3 days ago, how did you lure me to the West Cliff Mountain? How did you let the vines bring me to the King of Darkness? The man's shy expression froze on his face. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, his face paled a little. He opened his mouth to explain. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly again, but there wasn't much emotion in her eyes. The grudge between King of Darkness and me, as a member of the Palace of Darkness, you should be very clear about it. That day, if it wasn't for Xian, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to stand here with my life. The man's throat tightened as if something was choking him. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped the man from making a sound. She waved her hand and said calmly, I'm not blaming you. To me, you are just a stranger. No, to be more precise, an enemy. So, there's no need to show such a guilty expression. She paused for a moment. The expression on the man's face became more and more complicated, as if he had a lot to say. She chuckled softly, I just want to tell you, don't easily say things like you like me and won't hurt me. These kinds of words can only deceive yourself. There's no need to use them in front of me to gain my trust. I don't have the time to play the game of a true love with you. So, if you don't intend to show your real face, there's no need to lure me here. Yiqing Luo's vision swept across the surroundings. Chapter 4077. As the man listened to Yiqing Luo's words, the expression on his face was extremely painful. As though he was hurt, his eyes were filled with endless pain. Wearing Dmo Xian's face, showing such an expression, it indeed made Yiqing Luo feel like she was out of a play. West Cliff Mountain. It's my fault. The man's deep voice was filled with pain as he spat out every single word from his thin lips. The 2 books by his side were clenched into fists, as though he was trying his best to restrain something. His voice turned hoarse and deep, but this time, I really don't have any intention to hurt you. I just want to see you, to tell you that I'm not trying to impersonate him. I just want you to look at me a little more. If other ladies heard these affectionate words, they would definitely be touched by these words. But Yiqing Luo expressed that her heart wasn't moved at all. She didn't accept this kind of explanation. Using the guise of true love to impersonate someone else. Furthermore, using someone else's identity to deceive another lady. Thinking of Mu Chulan, Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule. She tilted her head as she looked at him with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Her eyes were filled with ridicule and ridicule. The man's eyes were filled with raging waves, as though huge waves were surging in his eyes. Under the darkness, it was dyed with a patch of black fog. It was so thick that there was only a patch of extreme black. In a split second, an endless amount of thick black evil chi gathered around him. It kept on surging and wrapping around him. When she saw that patch of thick evil qi, Yiqing Luo revealed a vigilant expression as she retreated a few steps and stared at him alertly. Had the true love card been played badly and he flew into a rage out of humiliation? But her alertness had just been raised. The next moment, the man in front of her seemed to have extinguished, and in a blink of an eye, he regained his previous warmth. He looked at Yiqing Luo's vigilant expression as a glint of pain and hurt flashed past his eyes. "Sorry. I didn't mean to scare you," the man said hoarsely. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she looked at him indifferently. "Don't go so far as to scare me." But, from the evil qi that was overflowing from his body and the action of quickly retracting the evil qi, in Yiqing Luo's heart, a vague guess surfaced. He was still pondering over this conjecture. In her ear, the man's hoarse voice, with a slight urgency sounded, also interrupted her thoughts. "I know that no matter what I say, you won't believe me with the identity of the gloomy palace." The man lowered his head, the shadows blocking his expression. "While saying that I'm in love with you, I also know that you must be laughing at me in your heart, thinking that I'm dirty." In the end, there was a hint of self-mockery in his tone. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. He had almost confirmed a certain thought in his heart. She pursed her lips and deliberated for a moment before saying, "To be honest, what you and the mysterious maiden of Shadowless City want to do has nothing to do with me. But, using a Xian's face and identity to tangle with the mysterious maiden of Shadowless City, I can't just sit back and watch." At the end of the day, it was because the person he was impersonating was DMO Xian. His actions had affected DMO Xian. Therefore, that was why she cared so much. The man's gaze dimmed a little. The next moment, the young lady's indifferent words shattered all the hope in his heart. Chapter 4078. Didn't care, because she didn't care about him. So she didn't care if he was dirty. The man chuckled softly. His laughter was full of bitterness. Especially looking for Yiqing Luo, he was really asking for trouble. He knew Yiqing Luo's character. But he still wanted to meet her alone, to tell her what was on his mind. "Madam." "Student Yiqing Luo." "Little Qing Luo." Suddenly, Gue Wu and the others called out from not far away. Those people's voices were obviously getting closer. The man's expression congealed as he raised his head and looked towards the direction of the voice. This was a corner not far from the treasure gathering. At the corner, they might bump into the passers-by. It should be, the man's evil qi had attracted Gue Wu's perception. Plus, there was no sign of her in the warehouse. Therefore, following this evil yin qi, the few of them found their way here. As the footsteps got closer, the man's expression became more and more solemn. He took a look at Yiqing Luo, his thin lips pursed into a line. His hands, which were hanging by his side, slowly rose and curled up, making a defensive posture. Those three people came over. Plus Yiqing Luo. Today, he would not be able to escape even if he had wings. But, just as the footsteps were nearing the corner, the young lady's clear voice suddenly rang, "You guys go back to the treasure gathering first, I'm fine." The approaching footsteps stopped. After a few breaths of silence, Gue Wu's deep voice was heard, "Are you sure?" "Yes, I'll go back immediately," Yiqing Luo replied. At the corner, they could vaguely hear Old Lai and Gue Wu arguing, about to rush over. But they were forcibly dragged away by Gue Wu. The approaching footsteps and breathtaking aura gradually faded away. The man who was in an offensive and defensive posture stiffened slightly, until that aura completely disappeared. This time he moved his body, his eyes overflowed with joy. "You don't want to kill me?" Earlier, he only needed Yiqing Luo's call. There was no way he could escape today. But Yi-Ching Luo let those people leave. Did this mean that in Yi-Ching Luo's heart, he still had a place for him? Go. Yi-Ching Luo's eyes were calm, as if she didn't notice the man's eyes burning. The man's thin lips raised into a smile. With Dmo Xian's face. That smile was enough to topple cities. But Yi-Ching Luo's heart was still unperturbed. This time, take it as me returning your favor. If there's a next time, I won't be merciful. Yi-Ching Luo threw this sentence and turned around to leave. Behind her, the man's voice tightened as he murmured the word favor. You know who I am, to be able to control the evil qi in the palace of gloomy shadows. Other than you, I can't find a second person. Yi-Ching Luo didn't turn back. She walked past the corner and disappeared from the man's sight. At this moment, the man seemed to have lost all his support and fell to the ground. He stared blankly at Yi-Ching Luo's departing figure. Suddenly, he chuckled. His wide palms covered his face, covering his reddened eyes, as well as the sparkles that were seeping out of his eyes. Ha! Ha ha ha, she finally recognized him. In the end, it had pushed the distance between the two of them even further. Yi-Ching Luo had only walked for tens of meters when she saw the three people standing in front waiting for her. Yi-Ching Luo went forward to welcome them. Before he reached the entrance, he saw a large group of citizens gathered outside the treasure-gathering hole. He could vaguely hear crackling sounds coming from the treasure trove. Yi-Ching Luo's brows creased slightly as she exchanged glances with the few people beside her. A few of them quickly stepped forward. On seeing Yi-Ching Luo and the others, the surrounding citizens immediately opened their mouths. Madam D, everyone. Where are you going? Not good, people from Linglong Palace Hall are coming. Linglong Palace. Yi-Ching Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she placed her vision onto the main entrance of the Gathering Treasures Exchange. A few girls dressed in lotus green robes were walking around the treasure-gathering hole. There were also 2 or 3 women dressed even more luxuriously, and they were constantly rummaging through the items in the treasure trove. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. Chapter 4080. Listening to the citizens' words. Yi-Ching Luo's pupils suddenly contracted. Mu Qiulan was dead. Mu Qiulan was dead, so why did Linglong Palace's people come to the treasure gathering for? Could it be? And even blamed Mu Qiulan's death on her. As expected, the citizen's next sentence was, Madam Emperor, I don't know where the news came from, but without embroiling City's mysterious maiden and Shadowless City's mysterious maiden were both killed by you, so this Linglong Palace is here to clarify with you if there's any misunderstanding. The citizen's words were very beautiful. But from the sound of things being flipped over in the treasure-gathering hall, it totally didn't seem like they were here to clarify, to avoid any misunderstanding. This Linglong Palace is really arrogant now, even daring to behave atrociously in my territory. Old Lai saw the treasure gathering being trampled, so how could he possibly keep his composure and listen to the citizen's explanation? He flicked his sleeves and rushed into the treasure gathering hole. Old Lai didn't hesitate as he rushed up with a punch, hammering down on that lady who was still pushing the table. That lady's reaction was extremely fast as she speedily took a step back. But she still staggered a few steps back from Old Lai's aftershock. That lady's face was instantly filled with anger as she raised her hand to strike back. This palm had yet to land on her. But she was stopped by a dignified voice, "Stop it." When the lady heard this voice, it was like a mouse seeing a cat, as she was so frightened that she shrunk back. This angry shout made Yi-Ching Luo look towards the direction of the voice. She saw a lady around 30 years old sitting in the corner of the treasure-gathering hall at the guest area. The lady's expression was grave and stern, not angry but imposing. Just by sitting there, she gave off an extremely strong pressure. She stood up as she looked calmly at Old Lai. Her imposing aura might be useful against those two ladies from Linglong Palace, but, to Old Lai, it was totally useless. Old Lai turned his head and met the lady's gaze as he raised his head and sneered, "Yo, isn't this Linglong Palace's Grand Judicial Elder? Why? You heard that I'm here at the treasure gathering hall, so you brought your men to wreck my place." The lady frowned as she replied impatiently, "This elder's motive for coming here has nothing to do with Hell Palace. Unrelated. UF** King destroyed my shop that I just got, and now you're telling me that it has nothing to do with me." Old Lai spat on the ground, pointed at the woman, and cursed, "The great judge, who was the one who smashed these things in the treasure-gathering exchange house? Which hand and which leg did it? Either you chop off their arms and legs, or I won't let you off." He was so domineering that he didn't even care that the person in front of him was a woman. Well, for Old Lai, gender was not important at all. More importantly, he was extremely displeased. The few people from Linglong Palace probably didn't expect that they would run over to question Yi Qing Luo and capture her. However, it had been messed up by Old Lai from the Underworld Palace. If they took action against Old Lai, that was the entire Underworld Palace. It wasn't that the Linglong Palace was afraid of the Hell Palace. However, the Underworld Palace was simply too difficult to deal with. If it was possible, they wouldn't even want to look at the people from the Underworld Palace. The first judicial elder tried to suppress the anger in his heart and coldly said, "Old Lai, I advise you not to push your luck. I don't want to cause unnecessary trouble." Chapter 4081. Grand Judicial Elder took a deep breath. Linglong Palace will bear all the losses of the treasure exchange. So now, can you please invite Miss Yi Qing Luo out? Just bear all the losses. Is this matter that simple? Old Lai was unforgiving. "Then I'll bring my brothers from Hell Palace to your Linglong Palace for a while and then bear all the losses. Are you willing to do so?" Grand Judicial Elder was apparently suppressing his anger, almost causing an internal injury as his features contorted. Old Lai snorted, "I've already made it clear, whoever smashed it, which hand, which leg touched the things in my shop. Punish yourself obediently, otherwise. Humph humph humph." The three ladies from Linglong Palace were so frightened that their faces turned pale, as they looked at Grand Judicial Elder pleadingly. Grand Judicial Elder naturally couldn't do anything to the people he brought along. If he really did something. If today's news were to spread. That Linglong Palace was afraid of Hell Palace, so they didn't hesitate to cripple their own disciple in order to protect Linglong Palace. If this kind of gossip were to spread. If Linglong Palace came to question Yi Qing Luo, they would lose half of their imposing manner. Immediately, Grand Judicial Elder pounded the table. "In that case, Hell Palace is determined to go against Linglong Palace. Don't King flatter me." Old Lai spat again. "Do you still want to escalate the matter to two forces? Do you think I'm afraid? Ha! But you have to be clear. It's your Grand Judicial Elder who used Linglong Palace's name to declare war on Hell Palace. And not me representing Hell Palace to go against Linglong Palace." Old Lai's logical rebuttal made Grand Judicial Elder tremble non-stop. Old Lai gleefully winked at the crowd. Trying to go against Yi Qing Luo in front of him. He, Old Lai, could make Linglong Palace doubt their lives. Good. Good. What a Hell Palace. Old Lai, I'll remember you. Grand Judicial Elder's hand trembled as he pointed at Old Lai, sneering. She flicked her sleeves in anger and led the few of them towards the entrance of the treasure exchange. Old Lai was still clamoring behind him, "Don't forget about the loss of the treasure gathering. You're a dignified great judicial elder. Once you say something, you can't go back on your word." The first judicial elder stopped and clenched his fists. Then, he stepped out of the door. The onlookers made way for them in unison. The great judicial elder gritted his teeth and strode forward. He had only taken a few steps. He then heard a clear and sweet voice, "Linglong Palace's great judicial elder is looking for me. May I know what's the matter?" There was a hint of laughter in that voice. Like pearls falling onto a plate, it was very pleasant to hear. The great judicial elder immediately looked towards the source of the sound. The two pale-faced ladies from Linglong Palace stared at that direction as their voices quivered. It's Yi Qing Luo." The great judicial elder narrowed his eyes and looked at the girl in front of him. The young girl was dressed in red, and she was overflowing with youth. Her smile and frown flowed with a bewitching charm. She was smiling, and her eyes were filled with smiles. However, under that sweet smile, the great judge felt an inexplicable sense of mockery. This thought made the great judicial elder's face sunk. "Imperial Madam, you. Why are you?" Old Lai pounded his own head when he saw Yi Qing Luo walking out. He had finally managed to anger the people from Linglong Palace to leave. Why did Imperial Madam take the initiative to stand out? Chapter 4082. Old Lai's kindness. Yi Qing Luo naturally knew about it. But even if Old Lai angered her away this time, there would be a next time. What's more, Linglong Palace's motive wasn't very clear. If they were really here for Mu Qilan's death. If she didn't step forward to find out the exact situation, this scapegoat would always be on her. The great judicial elder looked at the figure who slowly walked out from the crowd. Her face was cold and gloomy. It turned out that this little girl had been outside the door from the very beginning. But she intentionally waited for Old Lai to make them unable to refute and left in anger before calling out to her. She had already stepped out of the door of the treasure gathering. The moment it started, Linglong Palace's imposing manner had been deprived by half. But even if she felt aggrieved, the great judicial elder still had to lead the few ladies back to the treasure gathering. Her gaze was like poison as she stared at Yi Qing Luo. Her sharp gaze didn't make Yi Qing Luo feel any discomfort. Yi Qing Luo's thin lips curled up as she looked at her with a smile. That smile made the great judicial elder have a kind of chilling feeling. The great judicial elder pursed her lips as she stabilized her state of mind. She who had already lost most of her imposing manner could only choose the most direct. To ask, "Does Miss Yi know about Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's death?" "Yes." Yi Qing Luo nodded. She had just answered when the great judicial elder's eyes flashed. Yi Qing Luo continued, "Outside the treasure gathering, I roughly heard about what happened." The great judicial elder squinted her eyes. "Then, what do you want to say?" "Nothing." Yi Qing Luo replied indifferently. The great judicial elder's expression suddenly stiffened. "In that case, you admit that you killed Shadowless City's mysterious maiden?" "Admit?" Yi Qing Luo tilted her head as she chuckled. "When did I admit it? Regarding the news of Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's death, you have nothing to say. Isn't that a tacit admission?" The lady standing behind the great judicial elder frowned as her cold expression was filled with hostility. Immediately, she turned her head and whispered into the great judicial elder's ear, "Great judicial elder, this lady is extremely cunning. She's obviously playing dumb." His voice was not soft at all. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyes with a smile which didn't look like a smile as she squinted at the young lady who interrupted them and sneered, "All Master Ji, it's been a long time since we last met. Aren't you going to greet me when you see your savior?" The woman's body immediately stiffened. Yi Qing Luo raised her eyebrows and looked at the grand judge. "Are the people from Linglong Palace so ungrateful?" "You!" That lady's face turned pale as she pointed at Yi Qing Luo and stared at her furiously. His mouth moved, but he didn't know how to refute. Being criticized by a junior in such a haughty manner, the grand judge's face darkened. "What do you mean?" Yi Qing Luo slowly picked up the chairs which had been kicked over from the ground as she spoke out slowly, "Don't tell me. The great judicial magistrate doesn't know that I had once saved the two of you, Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu. Weren't the ones who pushed the tables and smashed the items in the treasure-gathering hall the escorts invited by the auction previously, Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu? Back then, as soon as the crisis of the auction was resolved, Xiao Yulu also died inside." Yi Qing Luo didn't pay attention to these unimportant people and what happened next. These two hall masters also took advantage of the chaos to escape back to Linglong Palace. She had not expected, they actually followed the great judicial magistrate and ran over to Without Embroiling City. Chapter 4083. When the Grand Judge heard this, his sharp gaze immediately shot towards the two hall masters. From her attitude, Yi Qing Luo knew that after these two hall masters returned to the Linglong Palace, they probably hadn't told the Linglong Palace about what happened in Without Embroiling City. Looking at how aggressive the Linglong Palace was when they came to gather treasures today, could it be that even Xiao Yulu's death was blamed on her? Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as the smile on her lips deepened. "Great justice. It's best to first understand the situation clearly before coming over to denounce. Otherwise, if you become someone else's chess piece, wouldn't that be an insult to Linglong Palace?" The Grand Judge's expression gradually darkened. The gaze he shot towards Yi Qing Luo was filled with a sliver of murderous intent. The aura that Xiaoqin emitted startled the two hall masters beside him. When they looked at each other, horror flashed in their eyes. Hall Master Ji raised her delicate eyebrows and pretended to be angry. She said sternly, "Stop trying to sow discord here." The great judicial elder naturally investigated this matter thoroughly. "Do you dare to say that you didn't kill the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City?" Hall Master Lu immediately echoed, "The Grand Judicial Elder has always been fair and impartial. He will never listen to your side of the story. Since we've come to treasure-gathering grounds, then we have absolute proof. You're still trying to quibble." The two of them were afraid that the judiciary would investigate the matter of the auction, so they immediately shifted their focus to the Empyrean fairy of Shadowless City. The Grand Judge's cold gaze swept over the two of them. In his eyes, there was a deep and dense cold light. However, in the end, she did not criticize the two hall masters in front of others. But his vision fell onto Yi Qing Luo. His expression was as cold as ice, and his eyes were sinister, as if he wanted to skin her alive. The Empyrean maiden of Shadowless City died in the Qiao family. According to the bystanders, the Qiao family head was ordered by you to lock her up in the room. Yi Qing Luo crossed her arms in front of her chest. "You still left out one person." Her voice paused for a moment, and her smile deepened. She spat out 4 words one by one, "Di, Zun, Di, Ren." Locking Mu Qilan in the Qiao family wasn't just Yi Qing Luo's idea. This was also Dmo Xian's intention. He even ordered 2 hall masters of the Emperor Palace to stand guard there. The Grand Magistrate deliberately did not mention Dmo Xian. They didn't want to provoke the Emperor Palace. But would Yi Qing Luo let her wish come true? "You don't want to talk about it. I insist on bringing it up." When the words, "Overlord," came out from Yi Qing Luo's mouth, the Grand Judge's face alternated between blue and white. He had not expected that Yi Qing Luo would not play her cards according to common sense. Generally speaking, which woman would be so bold as to bring out her man's name? Even if they wanted to bully others, they should have done it tactfully. Yi Qing Luo was laughing. She could hug her man's thigh anytime, anywhere. Not satisfied. Hold it in. She was just that cool and arrogant. "Miss Yi, I only want to clarify the truth of the matter with you. If you continue to be so overbearing, I can't help but suspect that Miss Yi is feeling guilty." The Grand Judge could no longer hold back the anger that was surging in his heart. Yiqing Luo totally disregarded the berserk imposing manner released by the Grand Judge. The ridiculing smile on her face grew even more. "Heh. Does the Grand Judge treat me as a fool? Kicking chairs, flipping tables and flipping things the moment I come in. Is this called as trying to clarify the truth of the matter with me?" Chapter 4084. The hostility in the eyes of the Grand Justice was so violent that it seemed like it was about to set off a storm. The ones who were even more furious were the few good-for-nothings behind her. Unable to accomplish anything, but only capable of ruining things. If it wasn't for the fact that they had pretended to overturn the entire store the minute they entered, they wouldn't have allowed Yiqing Luo to use them as a talking point. It was also because of the actions of these pieces of trash. Their originally surging momentum was being suppressed to the point of being pushed back. From the very beginning, his attitude was like a punitive expedition. But now, they were talking to each other in a friendly manner. For the sake of the Linglong Palace's reputation. The Great Justice had to swallow his anger. She clenched her fists tightly and suppressed the raging anger in her chest. She said word by word, "This is indeed inappropriate and the Linglong Palace will take responsibility for it. But before that, please answer my questions, Miss Yi." Yiqing Luo curved her lips. "Great Judge, please ask." The Grand Judge asked, "Have you seen the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City today?" Yiqing Luo replied, "Yes." The Great Judge, "How many times have you seen him?" Yiqing Luo, "Once." "You're lying." Hall Master Lu's big round eyes stared angrily at Yiqing Luo. "How could it be possible that we've only met once?" "Oh." Then Hall Master Lu said, "How many times have I seen her?" Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she teased. Hall Master Lu sneered coldly. "Previously, under the watchful eyes of everyone, you saw the mysterious maiden of Shadowless City once. Then, you quietly entered the room where the mysterious maiden of Shadowless City was imprisoned and killed her." When Yiqing Luo heard that, her curved lips started to smile bit by bit. Because of this smile, her beautiful face became even more charming. Almost all the onlookers were dazzled for an instant. "Hall Master Lu, for you to be so detailed, could it be that you saw it with your own eyes?" Hall Chief Lu's expression froze, and he stammered, Although I didn't see it with my own eyes, but according to the evidence at the scene, it's you." "Evidence?" Yiqing Luo raised her brows. "What evidence?" Hall Master Lu seemed to have finally found his confidence. He quickly took out a scroll from his pocket. The scroll was unfurled. There was a jade pendant drawn on it. A red line. Below it was a jade bead that looked like an emerald. When he saw the jade pearl, his eyes widened. Yiqing Luo's pupils unconsciously contracted. The few people from Linglong Palace stared at Yiqing Luo's expression without blinking. He noticed the change in her gaze. Hall Master Lu immediately asked, "Is the thing on the painting yours?" Yiqing Luo raised her hand and touched her neck. Apart from the azure dew silk chain, the jade pendant that he had always worn around his neck was indeed no longer on his neck. Her actions had already verified that the item on the scroll was indeed Yiqing Luo's. A proud smile appeared on Hall Master Lu's face. This jade pendant was found in the hands of the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City. It should be something that the Empyrean fairy of Shadowless City accidentally tore off from the murderer when she was struggling before her death. When he noticed that the jade pendant on his neck had disappeared, he immediately felt a chill run down his spine. Yiqing Luo roughly understood. It seemed like someone was trying to frame her from behind. That jade pendant was from when she could not control the restlessness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade and did not obtain the heart-calming bead. The jade pendant that Dmo Xian had given her. It could temporarily suppress the restlessness of the divine phoenix profound heart jade. Later on, Dmo Xian specially left a strand of consciousness in the jade pendant and saved her life at the critical moment. After that, she had been hanging this jade pendant around her neck and had never taken it off. This jade pendant. When did it disappear? And it even appeared in Mu Qiulan's hands. Chapter 4085. Since Miss Yi has admitted that this jade pendant is indeed yours, then please cooperate with the Linglong Palace's investigation. The Grand Judge glanced at the two hall masters. The two hall masters immediately went forward, one on the left and one on the right, as they approached Yi Qing Luo, wanting to grab her. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly but had yet to move. Old Lai had already rushed forward and slapped one of them away. He stood in front of Yi Qing Luo as he rolled up his sleeves and sneered, "I want to see who dares to touch her. Old Lai, are you trying to interfere with the affairs of the Linglong Palace?" The Grand Judge's face darkened. He was slapped in the face by Old Lai again and again. No matter how magnanimous she was, she couldn't bear it any longer. Old Lai's attack sent the two hall masters flying to the side. This was a slap to the face of the palace of Linglong. Don't use the Linglong Palace Hall to suppress me. Do you think I'm afraid? Old Lai sneered. The Grand Judge's eyes were filled with malice. His face was gloomy and frighteningly gloomy. The two of them looked like they were about to fight. Yi Qing Luo patted Old Lai's shoulder as she pulled him to her side and shook her head at him. Then, he looked up at the Grand Judge and said, "This jade pendant is indeed mine, but I don't know how it ended up in the hands of the mysterious fairy's corpse. You still want to play dumb? It was clearly you who killed the Empyrean maiden of Shadowless City. You just want to provoke our Linglong Hall." Hall Master Lu's seemingly adorable big eyes were filled with hatred. She was half lying on the ground, one hand pressed against her chest. Blood flowed from the corner of his lips. He was slapped by Old Lai. She couldn't be angry and had to endure it. Immediately, the anger in his heart was vented towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose as she looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Hall Master Lu's words sounded so certain. "May I ask if you had personally witnessed me killing Shadowless City's mysterious young maiden?" She paused slightly, and the smile on her face deepened. A cold arc of ridicule appeared in her long and narrow eyes. "Furthermore, the mysterious lady of Shadowless City is just a stray dog in my eyes. If I want to kill her, it'll be a piece of cake. Why would I need to be so secretive? Furthermore, your Linglong Palace has nothing to do with me. I am someone who is afraid of trouble, so I can't be bothered to provoke your Linglong Palace." Saying that, Yi Qing Luo laughed lowly as her eyes were filled with ridicule. "If Hall Master Lu has persecutory delusion, you'd better go and get it treated, otherwise it will drag down Linglong Palace's standard as a whole, making others feel that your Linglong Palace's quality, and the people, are all extremely incompetent. You." Hall Master Lu was so infuriated by Yi Qing Luo's words that his face flushed red. Yi Qing Luo's words were impolite. He did not give any face to the Linglong Palace. How could the great judge not hear the sarcasm in Yi Qing Luo's words? As his face darkened and his tone became heavier, "Miss Yi, no matter if you killed Shadowless City's mysterious maiden or not, your jade pendant is at the crime scene, so you are the suspect. The mysterious lady of Shadowless City was nurtured by my Linglong Palace Hall. I will take full responsibility for her death." What the great judge said makes a lot of sense. Yi Qing Luo nodded in agreement. "My jade pendant is at the crime scene, so I indeed have to take responsibility." This rare cooperation made the great judge frown vigilantly. "What are you trying to do?" "Nothing much, just to cooperate with the great judge to find the real murderer behind this." Yi Qing Luo replied with a smile. Chapter 4086. Yi-Ching Luo's smile deepened when she saw that the great judicial judge had yet to make a move. Her long and narrow eyes were curved, adding a touch of flirtatiousness to her beautiful face. Great judicial judge elder doesn't seem to want me to cooperate. The young lady raised her eyebrows meaningfully. She looked at the great judicial judge with some probing and ridicule. The great judicial judge elder's pupils shrank, his dark and gloomy eyes curled up his lips. It's good that Miss Yi can cooperate. Yi-Ching Luo suddenly cooperated. She deliberately wanted to disturb her thoughts. Since Yi-Ching Luo had sent herself to the door, then she wouldn't stand on ceremony. The great judicial judge elder's gaze moved. Hurry and invite Miss Yi to the Linglong Hall. The two hall masters climbed up from the ground and carefully looked at old Lai's direction, then tensed up their emotions and approached Yi-Ching Luo bit by bit. Just as the two of them were about to catch Yi-Ching Luo, a clear and melodious laugh rang out. Wait! The two hall masters quivered and instantly froze on the spot. The great judicial judge elder's gaze sunk. What does Miss Yi mean? The young girl was still smiling at them. Her expression was calm, and there was even a meaningful smile at the corner of her mouth. Because my pendant was found at the scene of the crime, so there is no problem with you being certain that I was the one who killed the mysterious fairy of Shadowless City. But you don't have the most direct evidence to prove that I killed her. There's no witness, no physical evidence, no wound, and the way of her death is related to me. So, what are you trying to say? The great judicial judge frowned even tighter, his heart inexplicably raised. Yi-Ching Luo smiled. So, I should personally prove that I'm not the murderer. How do you want to prove it? The great judicial judge asked. Yi-Ching Luo replied, the crime scene. Her words just ended. Hall Master Ji's face darkened and quickly retorted, impossible. You're such a sinister and cunning villain. If I let you go to the crime scene, wouldn't it give you a chance to erase all traces related to you? Yi-Ching Luo gave her a sarcastic glance. Long before you came to gather treasures to denounce me, you should have checked the entire house. Everyone's expression changed. It also verified that what Yi-Ching Luo said was indeed not wrong. Yi-Ching Luo laughed. I think, in the entire room, other than the jade pendant in Shadowless City's mysterious maiden's hands, there shouldn't be any other clues, so why can't I go? Hall Master Ji was rendered speechless by Zhang Xian. The Grand Judge glanced at the citizens who kept poking their heads into the treasure-gathering hall, as well as the hall masters he had brought with him. She frowned and finally said, I promise you, I'll let you go to the scene to find evidence. Grand Judicial Elder, Hall Master Ji and Hall Master Lu looked at the Grand Judge anxiously, their faces filled with reluctance. The Grand Judge's eyes, which seemed to be soaked in ice, swept over the two of them. The two of them were so frightened that their faces turned pale. The Great Judge cast his icy cold gaze onto Yi-Ching Luo. But, if Miss Yi is unable to find any evidence at the scene that can prove your innocence, then, you must obediently follow me to the Linglong Palace Hall and accept their investigation. As the Great Judge spoke, the expressions of the few people beside Yi-Ching Luo sunk. Chapter 4087. If Yi-Ching Luo went to Linglong Hall, who knew what methods Linglong Palace would use to deal with Yi-Ching Luo? No matter how strong Yi-Ching Luo's ability was. However, the Linglong Palace was their territory after all. What if he was injured? What should he do then? The few of them had yet to speak. Yi-Ching Luo had already opened her mouth as she smiled and nodded in response, no problem. Shao-Ching Luo. Zhou Mo tugged Yi-Ching Luo's arm. Are you silly? Lao Lai's eyes widened. Even I can see that she said that on purpose. Why did you agree? Yi-Ching Luo's brows were filled with a faint smile. She looked at the concerned and worried gazes directed at her. Her half-narrowed eyes curved as a trace of craftiness flashed through them. I didn't say that I would go to Linglong Palace alone. By then, wouldn't it be better to drag Dmo Xian along? With Dmo Xian holding the fort. Why would he be afraid that Linglong Palace Hall would have any ill intentions? Furthermore, after the matter of Qiao Yulu and Mu Qiulan, the two Empyrean fairies, Yiqing Luo felt that she had to make a trip to the Linglong Hall. She wanted to see what kind of existence the Linglong Palace was. And what sort of criteria did they use to select those Empyrean fairies? Zhou Mo and the others exchanged glances with one another and did not say anything else. Alright, they were overthinking things. How could Yiqing Luo be bullied by others for no reason? It was already a blessing that she didn't bully others. The Grand Judge and the others didn't pay attention to their whispers. Seeing Yiqing Luo agreeing to this request, a cold smile appeared on their faces. Vaguely, there was a hint of viciousness. The group arrived at the Qiao mansion, where Mu Qiulan was imprisoned. The entire courtyard was completely surrounded by the female disciples of the Linglong Palace. Even Patriarch Qiao was stopped at the entrance of the courtyard. There were also many people from the forces that were staying in the Qiao mansion, as well as people from the major forces that had heard the news and rushed over to watch the show. Patriarch Qiao's face was extremely unsightly. This was probably the first time Patriarch Qiao had encountered such a situation. In his own mansion, he was intercepted by an outsider. He felt very aggrieved. But this matter implicated Yiqing Luo. In order to prevent complications, he had no choice but to endure. When Yiqing Luo, the great judicial judge and the others came over, what they saw was such a lively scene. As soon as they saw the great judge and the others, an uproar broke out. The onlookers moved away one after another. Patriarch Qiao saw Yiqing Luo, who was walking right in front. Behind her, the two hall masters of the Linglong Palace were following her from both sides. Patriarch Qiao's expression immediately changed. He quickly walked forward and said, "Imperial Madam." Yiqing Luo gave him a comforting smile as she shook her head. "Patriarch Qiao, I'm so sorry. Because of me, I've implicated you. Luo's Qiaolong Palace. Moreover, the person who died was the Empyrean fairy trained by the Linglong Palace. Qing Luo and Qiao, Qing Luo was Qing. Moreover, it would not only be the Linglong Palace, but the Mu Qiulan clan would also be dissatisfied with Patriarch Qiao. I chinned Qing Luo." Patriarch Qiao waved his hand. "Guiyu, that old man's eyesight is not wrong. My son's eyesight is not wrong either. Moreover, that mysterious maiden from Shadowless City deserves to die." Saying this, his eyes were filled with sarcasm as he shot a glance at the direction of the Grand Judge. Chapter 4088. Qiao family's patriarch was already full of complaints about the Linglong Palace. Actually, his daughter had never been as competitive as she was now. Although the sibling's mother had passed away early, and he was busy with the family's affairs, he did not discipline Qiao Yulu much. But, children born in big families would have etiquette instructors since they were young. In addition, he was influenced by what he saw and heard. His personality wouldn't collapse no matter what. Take Qiao Yinyan for example. Although he was a little apathetic, his character was excellent. He never cared too much about his status or had any other ambitions. But Qiao Yulu, ever since she was chosen by the people of the Linglong Palace as a candidate for the Empyrean fairy, from the little sweetheart who knew nothing about the world, she became a competitive and vicious little devil. After that, his temper was out of control. By the time he realized it, his relationship with Qiao Yulu had become estranged, and he couldn't say anything intimate to her. In particular, he couldn't stand Qiao Yulu's actions. Every time he said a few words, Qiao Yulu would look impatient, or she would turn around and accuse him of not having the right to control her. In the end, he went straight to the Linglong Palace. Once he left, he didn't return for several years. They would occasionally meet, but they would always part on bad terms. The last time they met was when Xiao Yulu became the Empyrean fairy and returned to the clan. In family head Xiao's heart, he blamed himself for not teaching Xiao Yulu well in the past. He also hated the Linglong Palace for grooming his daughter into such a character. If not for the Linglong Palace, Xiao Yulu wouldn't have come to this. On top of that, Mu Qiulan, the mysterious lady of Shadowless City, also had such a strange personality. Patriarch Qiao could not help but suspect the Palace of Linglong's method of nurturing the Empyrean fairy. Especially now, the Linglong Palace Hall acted as if it was a matter of course. They wantonly arranged for the Linglong Palace Hall's people to enter the Qiao residence. Even the head of the Qiao residence was blocked from entering. Patriarch Qiao's words were obviously pointing at the Linglong Palace. The Grand Inquisitor's face sunk as he squinted at Patriarch Qiao but didn't say anything. Instead he looked towards Yiqing Luo and said calmly, "Miss Yi, go in." Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she patted family head Qiao's arm lightly, indicating for him to keep calm. Then, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he slowly walked towards the courtyard. Zhou Mo and the others followed behind him. Before he could get close, he was stopped by the disciples of the Linglong Palace who were guarding the entrance. The death of the Empyrean fairy of Shadowless City still needs to be investigated. It is not advisable for too many people to enter the scene. Bah! Who knows if you will take the opportunity to lay your hands on my sister? You are a group of bad people. None of you have any good intentions. Kitty Li glared fiercely at the Grand Judge and reached out to push away the Linglong Palace disciple in front of her. Kitty. Yiqing Luo took a look at Kitty Li and swept a glance at her outstretched paw. No matter, wait for me outside. Seeing that Yiqing Luo had opened her mouth, Kitty Li could only retract her hand angrily. Yiqing Luo stepped into the courtyard. The Grand Inquisitor followed closely behind. Kitty Li's eyes widened as she pointed at the Grand Inquisitor and said angrily, "Kitty knew you were up to no good. What do you want to do? Miss Yi is a suspect. If she enters the crime scene alone and destroys the evidence, then it's hard to explain," Hall Master Ji said with a cold smile. Kitty Li was so angry that her cheeks puffed up. Yiqing Luo's eyes were calm as she shot a glance at Hall Master Ji. Hall Master Ji was so shocked that his face turned pale as he pursed his lips tightly. She then retracted her gaze and walked towards the direction where Mu Qiulan stayed. Chapter 4089. She pushed the door open. A wave of deathly stillness hit her in the face. Mu Qiulan had just died not more than 2 hours ago. But there wasn't much stench in the room. But the moment Yiqing Luo opened the door, she sensed an inexplicable chill. That kind of chill was a little like evil yin qi. But in the blink of an eye, it disappeared. It was as if what he had just felt was nothing more than an illusion. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she glanced sideways at the judicial officer standing behind her. The judicial officer's expression didn't change at all. As though he hadn't sensed anything amiss. Seeing Yiqing Luo's gaze, the judicial officer asked coldly, "Miss Yi, have you discovered something?" Yiqing Luo carefully sized up the judicial officer again. The judicial officer indeed didn't seem to have sensed the gust of yin qi earlier. Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and shook her head as she turned her attention back to the room. It was afternoon and there was plenty of light. But there was a white candle lit in the room and the flame was flickering. The faintly swaying shadows made the entire room look a little more gloomy. Yiqing Luo walked slowly. Her gaze wandered around. She walked all the way to the inner hall, which was the sleeping room. Mu Qiulan was lying on the bed, but her legs were slightly bent and stretched out by the side of the bed. She was lying on her back and the posture of her arms was twisted. Yiqing Luo saw the piece of jade pendant in Mu Qiulan's hand. The emerald green jade pendant was sparkling with a sparkling light. Yiqing Luo walked forward and stretched out her hand to pick up the jade pendant. The judicial officer's sleeves moved and an invisible profound energy stopped Yiqing Luo's hand. "What are you trying to do?" "Dirty." Yiqing Luo shot a glance at the judicial officer and took a step back. "This jade pendant was given to me by Xian. If she touches it, it will be dirty." Following that, she said indifferently, "This jade pendant is merely a tool to draw your attention to me. Now that I'm standing here, this thing should be returned to its rightful owner, right?" "You mean, someone is using this jade pendant to frame you?" The judicial officer's eyes were filled with ridicule. Yiqing Luo raised her brows. "It doesn't matter if you believe it or not, I don't care. But if someone really framed me, then your Linglong Palace is merely a chess piece in their hands." The grand judge pursed his lips and did not speak again. A pair of gloomy eyes flickered with a cold light under the flickering candlelight. Yiqing Luo chuckled as she stepped aside. "Grand Judicial Magistrate doesn't trust me, so I'll have to trouble Grand Judicial Magistrate to bring the jade pendant over personally." The grand judge's face darkened and he didn't say a word. "I'm sure Xian wouldn't wish for the thing he gave me to be in the hands of a corpse. For such a long time, right?" Yiqing Luo wasn't in a hurry as she shot a glance at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. The grand judge's face twitched. He suppressed his anger and sneered. Then, he strode toward Mu Qiulan. He bent down and took out the jade pendant. The jade pendant felt cold in his hand. The raging anger in his chest seemed to be soothed by this cold feeling. She clenched the jade pendant tightly as her gaze swept up and down. After confirming that there wasn't any unknown aura or clues on the jade pendant, he then threw it to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and caught the jade pendant. She took out a handkerchief and wrapped the jade pendant before putting it into the azure dew bracelet. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.